Hi, nice to see you again. Okay, this shir, as always, is dedicated to Rachel Leah, Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi, L'ilui Nishmata. So today we're going to finish Sefer Daniel, which is very exciting. The topic today in Sefer Daniel in Perek Yud Bet is after we finished in Perek Yud Aleph going in very, very great detail what the patterns of history will evolve as being, to the point that we see the hashgacha and everything that's happened as the entire world's history unfolded. In Perek Yud Bet we're going to see what happens to us in the midst of all of this. Who will we be? What will happen to us? So it's taking everything back and moving us away from the mentality of looking at things through a window and rather looking at things through a mirror, seeing who we are and what we become in the course of all of this. ובעת ההיא יעמוד מיכאל השר הגדול העומד על בני עמך והייתה את שרה אשר לא נהייתה מיות גוי עד העת ההיא ובעת ההיא ימלא דמך כל הנמצא כתוב בספר. So the very first thing he says is that at the very end of things, before we see history, before we see the credits come down, as they would say in the movies, again we're going back to hearing the word of Michael, the Sar HaGadol. Who is Michael? So as we said previously, Michael is the angel whose place is drawing down Hashem's rachamim to us, to Am Yisrael. So told, what does he do all day? He offers Hashem the souls of the tzaddikim. So in the end, he's the speaker. He's the one who's going to see where all of this history has taken us. So we're told how it's going to be at the very end. It's going to be hard, which is why Michael has to come into the picture to serve as an angel of rescue. How hard? So hard that there's no historical possibility of saying it was like this or it was like that. So in terms of, does that mean that we have to wait for things that are even worse than the Holocaust, even worse than what we've seen until now? It could, or it could not. So the reason I'm saying two possibilities is that there's certainly reason to say that Sarah doesn't necessarily mean only profound physical suffering. It could mean what we've become right now. The 60% assimilation rate is something that's historically unprecedented when you consider that the majority of Jews live in countries in which that's the reality. So although that level of assimilation was once reached by the Jews of Germany, was once reached by the Jews of Italy, but the majority of Jews, the body of Klal Yisrael at the time, wasn't Germany and wasn't Italy. So what we have now in a spiritual sense is a tzara of unprecedented reality. Now the fact, as the Arizal points out, is if we aren't going to be redeemed by merit, if that's not on the horizon, we'll be redeemed because of our suffering, because suffering peels away all of the layers of externality and leaves the deepest self exposed and ready. So certainly one could argue that the physical side of that suffering has already occurred. That's what the Holocaust were. We certainly were left bleeding and exposed. And the contemporary levels of unprecedented corruption, unprecedented assimilation is leaving us internally in a place that's similar to that. So it'll be a hard time that has no precedent. And the survivors of that hard time will be your people. So Malbim says, what does it mean, your people? And he answers that there are two possibilities. One is within the Jewish people. There are those who identify strongly with Hashem. So in terms of spiritual Holocaust, of course they're survivors. Rashi has another take. He says that this is talking primarily about the physical things that will happen and their spiritual repercussions simultaneously. So Rashi says, when it says that there'll be a time of terrible suffering, and I'm going to read you, which is not my style, as you know, what Rashi says exactly. בפלמליה של מעלה וכתיגורה בתלמידי חכמים בזוזה דזוזה כמו שאמרו רבותינו בגדה פרק אחרון דכתובות. So there'll be terrible accusations in this time of tzara. There'll be shame of Talmidei Chachamim that was unprecedented. And at the same time, there'll be terrible physical things happening. The wars of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog are not the name of any particular people. They're descriptive of great forces that will be doing battle against each other. Okay, so everything here is already found b'Sefer. We already know this. So you could say, what Sefer are we talking about? So the answer is, of course, we're talking about this Sefer. That all of this part was foreseen when we spoke about the fourth animal. Okay, so this is how it'll be. Michael will be in there, trying to defend us, trying to find something that could be saved.